Hey, this is singer-songwriter Danny Horovitz, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout.
I've been driving this desert road, hands burning on the wheel. I've been up in the highest mountains, stumbling through the fields, searching through the endless winter under pale moonlight, until I found you, girl. Baby, I was lost in the night.
Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Max Bowen.
And I'm Curtis Hughes. Max, how you doing today, my friend?
Man, I'm doing pretty good, man. I've actually been, going through the recent episodes that we recorded, editing stuff out, and well, we recently spoke to Monique Asher for her book "Don't Eat the Pie." You'll hear the whole thing later, and I'm on the part where she talks about growing up in a haunted house, and holy shit, is that scary?
It is scary.
Yes, we need to actually go on location with her podcast at some point.
I don't want to do that. You're going to have to get a film.
One of us
for
is
me.
definitely going to die, just FYI. But in the meantime, we're actually taking a bit of a break because we're doing a lot of horror-related interviews here. We're going to be talking music. In fact, we're going to be talking to a very old friend of the show from way back when, like back in our days of Boston. So there's a lot.
We're going back to the Wayback Machine here.
Exactly, going way the hell back. So there's a lot to talk about here. Join us in welcoming Jeff Michaels of the Jeff Michaels Band. Jeff, welcome to the show. It is great to be talking to you.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, Curtis. I'm stoked. So glad you guys reached out several months ago, and not gonna lie, been looking forward to it all summer, actually.
All right. I love that. I love that.
That's great.
All right. And the timing actually works out really well because you were in the process of working on a new album. You're soon to release a brand new single. Tell us about the album, man. What's this one going to be all about?
No, timing is great, but I want to back up to the haunted house for a second. I can even segue from that. Our
Right.
house is haunted. I'm living in right now, so I'm like, I feel like this is just the next progression of your last podcast.
Oh, my God.
So yeah, I'm happy to have them come out here and assess. our
Okay,
house,
wait,
yeah.
hold on. Back up the bus for a second. Okay, you say haunted. What have you seen? What's
Before we
going
get to the music, yeah. Well, actually, it is very related to this album, if you will. And I did not think about it till this very moment, but these serendipitous things happen a couple years ago. Well, we moved. We were just saying earlier before we started the show here, moved out west of Boston. I was living in Boston for 7 years, and then during the pandemic, we got a house out here. Older house, fixer upper, which we're in the process of doing. But we started noticing some noises at night, little things here and there. And then I went through a period of being unable to sleep at all for about 6 months a night when I started waking up in the middle of the night hearing things. And a couple of the songs, actually, our new single Lost in the Night actually came out from that time period. So I did not think about it till this moment, but I'm like, that had a major effect on the lyrics, especially for this album. Waking up at 3 a.m. with a notepad going, what is going on? So yeah, we got a little haunting here. We're not sure what it is. Previous energy residents, but they just tend to wake up at 4 a.m. and push doors and stuff like that. And yeah, it's not like an evil thing, but it's just also, I like my beauty sleep and I'm not getting it. So yeah.
Understood. And it looks like we have my feeling right now, Max. It'll go with us when we go on location.
Yeah, I'll go on location.
Yep, Jeff's going to. Yep.
I'm not doing it. So
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man. Where's your spirit of adventure? Come on.
my adventure is every single podcast episode with you, my friend.
Oh, that's really nice. But way to skirt the question.
From the safety of your home.
Exactly right. Yeah, where you don't have to go to places where one of us is definitely going to die. Makes sense, actually. I like that. Respect that. All right, so we have Lost in the Night, inspired by a haunting, which I gotta say, Curtis, I think this is a first for us. Actually, usually we talk about songs inspired by like heartache and family and life in general, but this is all about a haunting. So, okay, this is new.
Yeah, and well, I don't think I came to that to this moment. A part of it, a part of it's searching for something and searching for someone, of course, and there's the cathartic ending. But yeah, that single in particular had a lot of. I dream about songs still. I got away from it for a while, and I started this one. I was definitely waking up in the middle of the night, lyrics pop into my head. I'm like, okay, I think this has to be another album. So yeah, that was the start of it. 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and here we are, just about ready to officially finally release the first single. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right, so let us talk about the rest of the album. Luckiest by Far is the title of it. The rest of the songs, are they also inspired by this rather unique life experience, or do they have like other sources?
They are inspired by my life experience. So I've kind of
Nice.
noticed each of my last couple albums, I've been working still. I mean, I feel like as a songwriter, you just work your whole life to find your most true voice. And I feel like this one, I went all out, and a lot of them are very autobiographical. So Luckiest by Far is another track. It's actually titled the track, and it's just basically my life story on paper with nice rhymes, of course, and a good hook. But most of the songs on here are about versus various segments of my life. Not all of them. There's still some fun rockers on there that, got to do because that's my genre. But yeah, this one definitely hits home on quite a few songs.
Okay.
I kind of envisioned, like, I'd taken a long break from writing, and then started working with my songwriting partner again, who lives in LA, and his basic premise was like, I had said I was retiring. He's like, well, nobody really retires. I mean, look at Phil Collins, look at and they all come back. It doesn't matter who it is. So I felt guilty for a little bit. I'm like, yeah, but I really said I was done this. And he's like, you're not done. And then we started writing again. And then, yeah, I just kind of go with the flow. And that's what came out, a bunch of autobiographical stuff.
How did it feel to be back in writing music? Like you say, you're done, you're retired. Your songwriting partner's like, no, you're not. You're not done yet. You're not done yet. How did it feel to kind of get like back into it?
I think a lot of my friends are in the same boat. I think a lot of it came from pandemic too. So this is sort of we're still 4 or 5 year transition out of bizarre time in human history, right? So I was living in Boston. I had a residency. I was playing, monthly, kind of still doing not full time music, but I was doing it pretty actively. And then
Was that
pandemic
over
hit, and no
Scullers,
one's
by the
playing
way? Were
live.
you still doing that?
No, I had moved over to Marriott Renaissance. They had
Okay.
on the waterfront, and had that for, I think I played it for at least 5 years. But I was also, playing Cheers and playing some other places, and like just, doing very active. Of course, pandemic shuts that whole thing down, and then it kind of took the spark out of the live play. Like I wasn't immediately. A lot of people were missing it so much, and the minute they're lifting all these restrictions, people are going back and booking. I actually took a different approach. I was like, I think it was time for me to step away. So I actually haven't played a live show since then. And that's been, my God, coming up on 5 years, which is a little scary because I would like to do it at some point. But I'm okay with that. The part that I thought I could get away from, to answer your first question, was the writing part. And I was like, I'm just going to, take a break from music. I also write books. I think, you guys are aware of that, and work a day job. And of course, now, I have a 6-year-old, and at the time he was 2. I'm like, nope, we're spending family time. This is great. What that does to your psyche, though, as a songwriter, is the part that you forget about. So going back to my friend who's like, yeah, you really can't give this up. Thankfully, he said that to me as blunt as he possibly could, with a couple F bombs, like, you're friggin' stupid.
For color. Yeah,
So, whatever commercial success or whatever aside, it really doesn't matter. You have to get out what's inside of you, or it will eat you from the inside out. So I was dealing with that for a while, add in the ghosts, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to just start writing every day again. And very thankful I did.
Awesome. So you mentioned you talked earlier about how like artists spend their whole life looking for their true voice. Do you feel like you found yours now, or
Yeah.
is that still a work in progress?
I think on some of these songs, talk about the single, I think Lost in the Night. It's a straight rock song, Springsteen-ish, if you will. But like, for the first time, I think I actually nailed a whole song start to finish with my own voice. Something I wanted to say that's very clear. You're searching for something. So I think, like, as a writer, I was actually able to get to the crux of the song much quicker than ever before. So I think that's part of it. And then the other part of, like, is actually material and saying things that you believe in and want to say. Like, I've spent a lot of time writing songs, like, of trying for other people, like country artists, and all over the board since, even playing live, and had a hard time, like, putting myself in other people's shoes. And like, it's a skill set that I partially have, but don't fully have. And when this kind of came along, I'm like, let's just see what I want to say. So there was no agenda, no thought of a single, no thought of like, oh, we have to do this with a band. We went out to LA with where my writing partner lives, and I played him stuff. And he's like, when he gets excited about a song, I know I've hit that little element of truth in there. As a background, he and I met early 2000s on a camping trip years ago, through our mutual friend, Jerry Becker and Train. And we were out in Northern California, and then he came and joined my band about a week later. He showed up at rehearsal, knew all the songs. I'm like, yep, Buren, just a phenomenal guitar player. And he also worked at Pandora, analyzing music for a career for a short time in Oakland. So when I say he understands music and songs, he probably analyzed 20 to 30,000 songs as part of his professional job. So he doesn't even need to think about where chords go and the progression, he just knows it. So it's really hard to bring him something new and something that he feels he wants to spend his time producing. So, I was really thrilled when I was like, had a batch of songs. He's like, yeah, these feel good. And it took, I don't know, 6 to 8 years to get a good collection that he felt was like, because as you guys know, once you embark on an album, it's another couple years of writing, rewriting, and getting the players and getting everything, all that. So you live with these for a long time. And, but this time I really feel like, yeah, each one kind of hits home, hits my voice in a way I feel like I can deliver it the right way. I'm not stretching to be someone else. And I do hope to continue that on, like as I'm, next albums and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I really hit it much harder than ever before. And that's not to say I was ever being inauthentic, if that's actually a word, but like, our first band when I was in California was called Even Elroy. And we kind of played the college indie scene. And like a lot of it was very fun, very hokey music. And it was still me, but there was always a part of it that had that little, it had heart and it had soul and it had heart and soul, but it didn't have my heart and soul, if you will. It was kind of like a little bit gimmicky in parts. And some of the songs were great, but some of it just was a little like not me. So I feel like after another 10 years down the road, I'm like, oh, I actually think this is me. And it's like, it feels good to listen to. And I'm like, yeah, I get it now. It's a tricky process though. I think I know a lot of writers who I hear it starting, and even like, I'm talking people who are like, very famous, and I can hear where they're just starting that journey, and like some of them get to it, some of them don't. But then you hear these mega artists like Taylor Swift, like she got it right away. Every song is her. It's Taylor. It's like, so I'm super pleased that I got to that in my writing. Like I said, whatever becomes of it, I'm not entirely concerned about at this point. But I just was able to do what I wanted to do with the recording. So yeah.
Jeff, you bring back a lot of fond memories. When I believe when you and I first got introduced to one another, I think it was back, during like the Karmic music days. It was Even Elroy, where you had switched over to JMB, Jeff Michaels. Yeah, that's kind of going back a ways and the way back machine. So a lot of fond memories, a lot of different gigs that we've done. So I certainly remember that. With the current album that you have coming up now, we see a lot of artists go the crowdfunding route, asking, friends, self-funding, that sort of thing. You went about the funding of this album a little bit differently. You had a grant help you out with this album from, I believe, here in Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken. How does something like that come about? Max and I were talking about this, never even knew this sort of thing existed, just like a one-off. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, I got very fortunate. So I was listening to something about Springsteen was saying the other day. He was talking about growing up, and he said something about like, I don't know, he played one of his very first gigs, and someone offered him, he played for an hour or two, and like they gave him $5, and he was like, "You're gonna like pay me money to just play music? This is freaking awesome!" Like it was one of those that I'm like, so I've never actually put the money behind the music because I've always like self-financed my own recordings, and like we make some back in royalties. We get some very successful streaming here and there, and it comes and goes, but it's as a small business. But this time, we were talking about the pandemic. I actually did stop playing. I was playing once a month, and they actually shut the whole thing down. So it turns out I qualified for Massachusetts, as awesome as this place is, had a fund for Boston artists that were, displaced or whatever because of the pandemic. And then I applied and won a grant. And the agreement was if you do win a grant that you can't just take the money and run, whatever, you can. So I actually put it towards the recording and hiring musicians and, paying it forward. And it was enabled me to do a little more on this album, such as flying back to San Francisco and record with some old bandmates and put a little more budget behind it, which listen A and B to a couple of the last ones I done. I'm like, oh yeah, that extra money really helped. So it was great. Yeah. So I never thought I would win a grant. I thought that was kind of like just stuff they put on the internet just to say that they're doing stuff for the arts, but it's actually true. I would encourage anybody who's like, looking to finance and things like that. It's a very lengthy application, I will say, but I spent several hours in your resume and, but it wasn't difficult. I've been, an independent artist for, almost 2 decades. So I've had a lot of backup there, but it was great. Yeah. So very grateful to the state of Massachusetts for coming through and funding a major portion of this album.
You know, it's funny, Jeff, because I was actually thinking the same thing earlier because we always talk about how the city is not very supportive of the arts. You see that in some areas, but hey, in here they are doing it. All right, then. Well done. Good job,
I
guys.
was again, yeah. I mean, you're coming. I've lived and primarily played live in San Francisco for a long time, which is a pretty, or was a pretty artist forward city. Boston was known for its scene, but not necessarily like this major support network at the time when I was here. But there's a lot of great strides coming. Yeah, it's really good.
Now, for this album, you worked out in LA for the better part of this thing. You worked with Scott Barkan, and you've worked with him before. Tell us, what does Scott bring to the table that has you keep coming back and back?
Kind of like the Elton Bernie Toppin kind of thing. It's like that magic that I've written with other people. I've recorded an album with other songwriters. I wrote Towny Paradise, which is our last big rock album with another partner, Chris Tefner, who's now out in Phoenix. And we played the Hard Rock here. I think might have been part of that promotion on that one too. Great album.
Love that
Scott
album.
and I actually just have a longer history coming up on 20 years. And it's one of those things where there's no hesitation in saying what's wrong from him. And a lot of people have, written with this stuff. You're very hesitant to step on someone's creative juju because it's going to maybe hurt their feelings or something. Like it's very difficult. But we got to the point nearly instantly. Like I said, the first day we remember just playing camp songs, we were just like, no, that's where the song is supposed to go. And of course, I'm trusting him because he's a musician himself. We're playing together and just like he knows music like I've never really met anybody that knows things like that. And then it took a long time. We started working, this is back in 2006, when I was still in Eva and Elroy, and we wrote a few songs together, and they were clearly the best songs written. I had pulled some music that he wrote as a jazz trio and made a pop song out of it, No More Rainbows. It was just all his guitar riff, and so we had toyed with it. And then it really wasn't until I moved back east, and we were both sitting, he was in New York at the time, and I remember the conversation. He was just like, I'd like to actually produce your work. And I'm like, I didn't even know he had those skills. Like, yeah, I've been touring around. And so he actually took on the production aspect. So from there on, it was like, I could only just had to give him a shell of a song and some terrible demo that I made in my apartment. And then he would take the rest of it. So these are all basically, my ideas just blown up by his musicality. I think he played nearly every instrument on the album except for the stuff that we did live, which I'm happy to talk about too, which was really fun. But yeah, having someone you can trust with any idea and be as vulnerable as you want. We both had some ups and downs in our lives, people coming and going. There's, you write about all this stuff and we always been able to share it. It's been awesome. Again, this one in particular, we sat with the writing and he told me, he's like, I'm really going to be hard on you on this one because the songs are worth it. And so him being hard on you is basically like going to a master class for every song that you write. So we start out and then he looks at every single line. He's like, yep, what does this lyric do? What is this? What is this? Why do you need the bridge here? It's just sitting. And he actually taught songwriting at in a college in Philadelphia too. So he's like, he's a ship. So having that professor approach and also a musical genius and also like the two of us just blending on the music, I think just made for, in my mind, just like a perfect partnership. And yeah, we're just hoping it keeps going. We get to play together because we haven't played together for a long time, but hopefully that comes up too. So yeah, but having that right hand every time I know it's needed is when I like look back a year later, like and I find the old demo and I'm like, oh God, if I ever release that, like without, someone else taking a look. And I know a lot of writers hesitate to like really get a partner. And I did for many years too. And I'm like, I got the song in my head. I don't want to be like changing. I'm like, but until you find the right person who just like pulls it out of you. And there's been a lot of times where I spent upwards of a year, maybe a year and a half on a particular song. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then he's like, I don't hear it. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. And so that's why I'm like so happy to get to the point where like, yep, we got an album now. It's 8 originals. We're working on a cover. It's a full album. Every song, play it, whatever. I think they're all great. Like, whether they're, again, hits or not, I don't really care about that. But they're like, to a songwriter, I'm like, ooh, they all have resonance and they all work. And it's because of that time we spent like doing that. So yeah.
So you say it took like a couple of years to get this album going, and of course working with Scott. Can you give us one up and one down in terms of how the sessions went?
Yeah, an up was, let's say, like an easy. Yeah, like Lost in the Night. If we take the single there, I think you can hear it too when you play. It's just like it just flows. It's a hook. It's I test my music now with my son, and he's going da na 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 da na 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 na. He gets in his head, so it's like that's there. That probably took 3 minutes to write, nearly start to finish. Very little revision. I had that one pretty good. We talked about the bridges. We added a couple more lines. Scott added some stuff about let's make it a little more, ethereal. So that was enough. There's a third. I think it's track 3. It's foolish things, and it was about sort of my journey in California, believing in these foolish things and being swayed by other people's opinions and all this. But I had a chorus I absolutely loved, and then every time Scott's like, "But this doesn't say anything." We spent I think it was 8 months just on the chorus lyrics, and I'm not sure they're still right, but they at least worked. And I remember we went on vacation. We were in Miami, and I'm like, we are tracking next thing. I'm like, I had no bridge, and he kept fighting me on the bridge. I'm like, it has to be 5 and 4, whatever the thing was, and I'm like, I just don't hear it that way. So I walked around. It was my wife's birthday trip in Miami. I had my headphones on, circling the beach until I got it in my head, and it finally came to me. I'm like, God damn it, he was right. This is what it was. And I listened back. I'm like, it could not have been any other way. So it's like that was like I won't call it a down, but it's like that took 8 months of like, I don't understand what you're trying to make me do in the song, but now we got it. So yeah, some of them are, super fast. There's another one on there. I wrote quite a few songs past few years about my wife, and this one called That Girl, that was another 3-minute one. Like, I don't even think I changed a word. That was start to finish. So you get those and you just take them, and then all you got to do is tweak them. But yeah, the struggling of like putting in something when you just can't hear it. It's not that it's frustrating because I love the process, but it can drive you absolutely freaking nuts. Like, I don't know a lot of people who would spend 8 months on like a bridge, but like, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to do. So it's like, I'm up for the challenge. Not that I have anything else to do. I'm very, very busy being a parent and working, but I mean, like, I want to get it right. So it's
Sure.
like, and then I couldn't put it out. And now I hear it. I'm like, all right, we got it. We got it.
All right, so we talked earlier about how this album has been kind of your return to songwriting, but this also saw you kind of reuniting with your old band for the first time since about 2006. So certainly a long time. I like a 2-part question: what happened that you guys kind of went your all separate ways, and what was it like to kind of come back together for this?
Yeah, it was 2006. I had to think back. We had played a couple shows together. So I moved back from California in 2008. That was kind of like economy changing. People were, everyone I knew losing jobs. I ended up moving back home. My folks, thank God they still had their basement and saved me, from living, we'll just say, on the streets, like literally. We had nothing at the time. Since then, met my wife, started up again, and everything is, been so fortunate to land back in Boston. But yeah, most of my bandmates were in California. I did make some new bandmates. Curtis, I'm sure you remember Ben Reynolds, who was a bass player we played with out here.
Yeah, he's out in California now, I think.
And then he moved back to
moved
San
out, right.
Francisco. So I'm like, all right, so I just, I can't. And that other guy, Chris, he was here. He moved to Phoenix. So everyone's going west. I'm like, all right, my family's here and I'm not going west. So I decided this time out, I had been recording with Scott back and forth, and we did a lot of stuff, tracking. And I said, I really want a live band as much as possible. We thought about just hiring some LA studio musicians and doing it like that. I'm like, yeah, we could do that. I've played with them. I've also tracked our last album with Steve Bowman from the Counting Crows, and he's like a world-class, one of the top 100 drummers in the world. Unbelievable time, and everything comes out perfect. But I wanted the experience of like, what can the guys who I knew so well bring to the table? So if I go back to our single Lost in the Night, Ryan McAmer, who is my drummer I've known now for 15 years or whatever, he just has an energy about him that like, we played the track with the samples, and I'm not knocking samples. I think they're great. We use them all the time, but there is nothing like having the energy just flowing from someone. And I got these great videos that I'm going to post online of like the sessions, just like, we tracked everything in a day, and I was like, going to be aggressive. I'm like, it's not going to be aggressive. We're just going to see what comes out. And no, it's not perfect. We had to tweak these things. And we recorded in this big cavernous room at my friend Adam Rossi's studio, and it was phenomenal. We hadn't sat down to record, in 15 years. So you got a lot of tension and energy, but at the same time, not a single thing had changed. Like, it's the exact same situation, still nervous to play, still doing this. And like, what, give me more of this. And just like the way that kind of came out was just so organic and perfect. And I'm like, this is all I wanted. And I'm like, that's why it just feels right. So every time I listen to it, I'm like, that, we could have done it with a cleaner sampling and all. It just doesn't come out with that soul part of it. So I had wished for so long, like I could just get that back together in a band sound, and haven't been able to do that. Finally, again, part of this grant, having some money to travel and book the sessions was really helpful. So that was a huge, huge, huge thing. And then, yeah, Ben was out there, so he got to play on this too, which was fantastic, and some other folks as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear you got literally the band back together for some of the tracks on the Luckiest By Far. Let me ask you about Luckiest By Far, the title itself. I love it. Did it have any special meaning? How did the title come about?
Yes. I think it was coming up to that point in life where you're just like, I'm the luckiest person I know. Like, I just have everything, like, unbelievable wife, unbelievable kid, like, we're beautiful home. Like, for so long, there's so much of a struggle, like, and I enjoyed the struggle. And then I didn't have the struggle. And I found myself being not depressed, not gonna use the word because that's not really what it was, but it was just restless of like, I just don't know what's next because I'm always like been this, working musician, this working artist, like, and I think a lot of my friends resonate with this. Like, you're always striving to do something, to hit this goal, hit this thing, and it's just like this constant pull on you to do better, be better, be better. And it's like, at some point, I had to throw it away and just stop. And I'm like, I actually have everything I need. And like, I started writing about that, and just like, oh, but there's still this pull to be better myself. So it was sort of like this whole thing. I'm just like, and then the Luckiest By Far thing came out. I'm just like, I really like am like, I just like, it just kind of hit. So I just started playing with that toy. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, yeah, I get everything I want. It's just like, so it's kind of like the self-actualization of just like, yeah, this is pretty freaking awesome. And I think getting back to earlier, you're talking about like being the true authentic self. That's something I never would have been able to write about like years ago. I just think it would have been too vulnerable and too like cheesy, if you will. Like, I wouldn't have done it in the right way. But I feel like this
At
has
the
a
right
nice
time, basically.
right time. But it also came out in a song I think like feels like a good track. Like, it's a good rock track. Like, it's got that, Springsteen-esque. I always go to him, but like that vibe. Like, it's not corny. And I feel like that's another one that could be a single as well. So
We talked about the long history, doing this for, nearly 2 decades. And you've met a lot of people, you've had a lot of, lack of a better word, celebrities or hit music makers, that you've collaborated with and worked with on projects. But talk to us specifically about Jerry Becker and Train and how those sessions went.
yeah, Jerry has been a crazy component of our life for quite some time. So when I was living in San Francisco, this was early 2000s. Train, who is now, global phenomenon. They've been touring every summer for years. All the Grammys and everything. They were just rising. They had one. This was even before Meet Virginia. I'm sure you're familiar with their sing. Just before that, they had one song on the radio, and I immediately heard it. I think it was "Free" was their single, and I was just like, wow, this band is wow. That's wow, that's who we want to be. Long before Drop to Jupiter, all that, and turns out the band I was playing at the time was called Loose. I was a keyboard player in that band, and our manager was friends with one of their original guitar players. I'll make the story short, but the original guitar player who came and saw our show. And anyway, we were like, we had played like 30 gigs at the time. He's like, oh yeah, you guys sound good. He's like, you'll get to be a band after your 100th show. That's when you start to really fit in. We thought we were ready to be signed at like 30 shows. He's like, nah, you got like years to go. So they had done their homework. They finally, as a band, had played together 8 years, and then they finally clicked, won their Grammy. All along, Gary Becker had been their tour manager. He was the guy who ran to college kids. He would tell us the end of the night and shake them down and make them go to the ATM with their $300 they owed the band. So he was that guy booking all the shows for about, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years. And then Train underwent some lineup changes. And then Jerry was also recording. That's how I met him. He recorded my first album second album in San Francisco. So we were friends for a while. And he's like, hey, guess what? I'm going to be on the next tour. We're going to Japan. I can't do any more recording with you. I'm like, okay, that's great. Good for you. He's like, I'm going to be in Train. Next day he calls, actually, I can record your album. They went with someone else. So then we just kept recording, like playing gigs. And he's become friends with everybody on the San Francisco music scene, just an unbelievable guy. A couple years later, he finally got the call. And now 10, 15 years down the road, he's the Train musical director. He's co-writing. He's working on them with everything. We see him every time he comes around, hang out backstage. He's awesome. this time I happened to say we were in San Francisco at the same time, and like, you want to swing by the studio and check out what we're doing? And he said, sure. Came down, and I got him to play on a couple of the songs, and we recorded American Love Song with him, and he just came up with a bunch of parts. And we talk about no time passing. It was like 12, 15 years, and we're just sitting there doing the exact same thing, just noodling on a little part. In those 12 or 15 years, this guy's recorded with Grammy Award-winning artists up and down the coast, every single, Quincy Joe, everybody. And he was just like doing the exact same thing for us, just like it wouldn't take any money. Just be like, hey, this is cool. And we just had a blast. So it was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Talking about the lengthy history that you've had too in your music career, you branched out a lot as an artist with the different types and styles of music. They've varied here and there, but you've always stayed, I would say, true to who you are as an artist and what your vision is. Your music, you've kind of gone a route that nobody, I should say nobody, but a lot of artists don't really, I'm going to say, underutilize or undervalue, or don't exactly know how to go about getting to that process. And that's with a lot of the TV and the film and the sync licensing and whatnot. So you've had a lot of success doing that. What was the first song that you had out there for sync, and how did that help you build your career to where you've got it today?
I don't know the first one. We had, kind of signed a few in bundles from the Even Elroy days. But I do know the first one that I heard majorly was on The Real World on MTV when that was still a major thing. And it's not as big a thing, I don't think it is now, but like back then it was, it's still incredibly difficult to get your songs on anything, but there was a lot less of opportunity. So getting something on MTV at that point on a reality show was huge. And I still remember watching it and just counting the seconds. I'm like, keep playing, because every second is like another note. I'm like, I needed the royalties so bad. And, lo and behold, the check came through and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like this paid for the whole album in one cut. Of like, this is amazing. But that being said, like it didn't really translate to like, oh, all of a sudden, it didn't blow up that way. Like it wasn't like, you hear the stories. Of course, it wasn't, on Grey's Anatomy or something like that. So I think it was a really nice push and it kept us going, which was awesome. I did spend a lot more time, and here's where it gets bizarre, and there's really no way to predict this, because I spent many years trying to do the exact same process, the exact same pitching, same contacts, not a single thing hit. And I thought some of the music was much better. Just it's luck of the draw, what fits the vibe, whatever. I had signed an entire album to like Discovery Channel, all this stuff, and nothing got played. So it's just complete. I just don't think you can control that part. And then the weird part is like, but if you keep trying this and keep doing it, I swear, like it will work in some way. So like, okay, the film TV didn't work out, but then I get a check one day. I'm like, what is this for? Turns out on Pandora, most people have shifted to Spotify now, but we were on Pandora for when that was, much more of a major platform. We had paired with a Rod Stewart track for some bizarre reason. And the royalties, like I had like hundreds of thousands on one song. I'm like, this is phenomenal. Another example is I got letters from like someone, a bunch of people in London who kept hearing songs. I'm like, where are you hearing this? Oh, you're playing and I'm still playing in some grocery stores in London and the UK, and I still get royalties. I'm like, I have no idea why or where or how, and I've never heard it. And I really want to go there and hear my song because I think it's going to be amazing, and I'll video it. But you just have to keep pushing that stuff out there because you just don't know where it's going to land, really. So yeah, it's totally helped, and I just could not predict how to do the next one, or I'd of course I do the exact same thing every time.
You should definitely fly out there, find that grocery store, and just like stand in the aisle listening to yourself and like video the whole thing.
Just CCTV with the huge sign. I'm that guy.
There's something, I don't know. I wish I knew which chains, because you get the reports and like I can see it, and like I can see it get paid in British pounds, but I can't tell where or where, because I'd be there every day. I'd be bagging groceries just waiting for it to make a music video. I'm like, here we are.
Your next,
I think it's cool.
This could be your next adventure. You never know. Maybe,
but I might have to wait, a month for it to play.
Hey man, worth it, right? Bag those groceries, and when it comes along, be like, yeah, this is why I did this.
Yeah, and it'll be the night shift at 2 a.m. when there's 3 people in the store. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's me. And they'll be like, silly yank, whatever you say.
That's fame. That's fame. Big in Japan.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Curtis, I wonder what random country we're like massively popular in.
No idea. No idea. Although I hear Australia is kind of nice.
Maybe,
never know.
maybe we're a big deal in Oz. You never know. All right. Okay, folks. Well, we are coming down to the end of this conversation. But Jeff, I want to ask about just longevity. You've been doing music for a couple decades now, which is really a lot longer than most people last. What do you think has been your secret to just staying current, staying active as a creator, and staying like relevant in the here and now?
I don't know relevant matters as much as it did before, because now I'm just, I have a lot of friends who like write very different genres, and there's stuff that just like resonates with a very small amount of people. Does it have anything to do with the current landscape? Absolutely not. But it's like they're doing it because they're doing it. They're touring Europe. They're doing these things. So relevant is sort of like, I don't know, you're relevant as long as you can sing something, like whatever. But I think for me, the keep doing it is a couple things. One, always in search of the perfect song. I think beyond all the other stuff I've done in my life, just songwriter is number one. It just whatever. Like I said, I wake up, I hear these things, I hear rhymes, I just hear music, and it goes together. Always in search of that perfect song. The other thing is what we talked about earlier is when I didn't do it, it felt terrible, and it just, that stuff lives in you. And luckily I'm not an addict. I don't have any addictions, but I think like songwriting is my major addiction. Like if I don't sit down at a guitar or piano, once a week and pop something out, it's going to fester inside. So I think that's, I've been very fortunate to have that. And now, thinking about it, I'll go back to Luckiest By Far. There's a line about, child in there and having a new baby on the way. And I think slowly teaching songwriting to, my little son, and see if he picks it up or not, it's fine. But I think there is something like, he loves Detta songs, and that's amazing to me. Like if I did nothing else in my life but have songs that my son likes, I'm like, that's worth it. So but the keep going part, I started writing Broadway type music and working on musical type stuff right now. So I think the relevancy for me is like, I'm probably not really dying to get back to playing. I'd like to do a little tour with this album, and it'd be a lot of fun. But I'm not looking to make a major thing. I just like to record as a recording artist. I think that's great. You got all these streaming platforms, and like I said, I can have my music playing at 2 a.m. in London on a grocery store, and hey, that's awesome for me. But I do want to understand that, I've been doing this for a long time. And I think I learned a lot. And now I think it's the time to like take that and put it into a different venue. And I'm writing a lot of female ballad type stuff for other artists. My wife is a great singer, so I'm starting that route. And I think that's where it's going to be like the next step, if you will. And we'll see what happens there.
All right. Well, speaking of next steps, we've talked about the album, but what else is next for you? What can people look forward to down the road?
So the single's coming out in November. The actual album will be out first of the year, or in January 2025. I'm actually working on things that come organically to me, I decided. So I struggled with this one. I'm like, yep, the album came organic because I won this wonderful grant to do it. Bang, I'm going to do it. I have very little free time these days being a father. So it's like, okay, we can't do too much with the touring and stuff, but I do want to put together some release shows, probably maybe in the next May or June. I'd love to maybe get back to the Hard Rock again. We've always had some great shows there in Boston. So maybe I could team up with that for a little bit of a release party. I'm working on a music video. I just spent some time in New York last week and shooting a music video for Lost in the Night. So I'm going to be putting that out hopefully by the end of this year too as well. So little things that come bit by bit, and, sort of have to have a little, they have to have a lot of heart in them. So that's what I'm going to be sticking with. So.
Sounds good to me. Well, Jeff Michaels, thank you once again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to reconnect, talk about the music, and very excited to kind of check out the album, especially Lost the Night. That sounds like a really, really cool song. Awesome.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough. And I'm so excited I got to talk about myself for 45 minutes and didn't even get too bored, which is
right. Best part about the show. You just get to talk about yourself.
Great conversation. And it really helped to think back. It's like, I think a lot of the stuff we do in these little silos in our apartments, and all my songwriting friends, like they're putting little tiny blips online, and like, but I know that the process of doing these things takes, it's a 2-year thing, and you're by yourself, and it's great to have a avenue like this to kind of talk about the whole process, and hopefully people get some stuff out of that just as listeners. So that's great.
Happy to help. Well, folks, this brings this episode to a close. Thank you, of course, always for listening. I'm Max Bowen.
And I'm Curtis Hughes.
We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
And with that, we bring this episode to a close. Thanks for listening, and if you haven't already, check us out on Facebook under Citywide Blackout, and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. You can catch this and all your favorite episodes on your favorite podcast platform, and new episodes are added every week, as well as on Boston Free Radio every Saturday at 10 p.m. You get at me at citywidemax@yahoo.com if you want to suggest a guest, submit your music, or just drop us a line. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
I was born on a cold April morn. Doctors took one look at me. What we got here's a right average boy. Ain't nothing special to see. My mama held me close as my daddy warmed up the car. Average, that's crazy. You're the luckiest by far. Luckiest in a tiny town means everyone knows your name. Everyone works the same few jobs, stocking shelves or mixing paint. Everyone chases the same few girls in the high school gym in the dark. When she started dancing with me, the luckiest by far. Ain't got no mansion on the hill, ain't got no Hollywood star. I got everything I need, the luckiest by far. Moved out west to the Golden Gate, played my music under the fog. Met a girl about half my age, wasn't in the cards. Late at night when the band rang out from the shadows of those bars, I felt the music from within, the luckiest by far. Ain't got no mansion on the hill, ain't got no Hollywood star, just enough to pay the bills, the luckiest by far. Somewhere in the dead of night, I heard you call my name. When I looked into your eyes, I knew my luck would stay. Settled down in a tiny town with a baby on the way. When I held him in my arms, I learned what lucky meant that day. Someday when he's all grown up, I'll toss him the keys to the car. Drive around so he can see we're the luckiest by far. Ain't got no mansion on the hill, ain't got no Hollywood star, ain't got the kind of money that will get you very far. But when we take that drive out to the edge of town, find the mansions on the hill of crumbled